This is Sybert signing into Red Alert 3 on Infinity Isle. It is going to be Dankal as the Blue Soviets on the left side, and on the right side it is LiCtor playing as the Yellow Allies. That's right, it is going to be Dankal versus LiCtor. A couple of fan favorites, I would say, although not necessarily everybody's favorite. It looks like Dankal is actually going for a dual barracks opening, while on the other hand, LiCtor is going power plant first, and most likely following that up with a barracks of his own. Because, I mean, if he doesn't... No, he's actually going airfield. Oh, that was actually... I was wondering why he was building a delayed barracks like that. But actually, 3 barracks out of Dankal. So a little bit unusual for both of these players. Not super unusual is a fast airfield, but it is at least a little bit unusual. And I'm assuming that we're not going to be seeing a turret push, although we very well could. No, he wouldn't have walled in that second refinery so preemptively if he wasn't in fact going for somewhat of a standard play. He just went for a fast airfield, while Dankal is just going absolutely ridiculous on the infantry, just triple barracks, and look at that, he's constantly producing conscripts. He's hoping to do something crazy here. The bears do get taken out. Good micro by LiCtor of those Vindicators, and now the conscripts have all been lining up, and they've all got their Molotov cocktails out. That's so much alcohol that's going to waste, and they don't even care. Oh, the micro out of LiCtor, almost perfect, wasting 1 bomb there. That's not a huge deal, but it does look like Dankal is going to be selling it off, building a super reactor, so he's going dual refinery into super reactor. The multi-gunner turret does go down. However, there is not actually a barracks here to provide any reinforcements, so the multi-gunner turret will go down in a couple of seconds there. No, actually, all of the conscripts do pull back. The dog does get out. Dankal definitely doesn't want those dogs to get away. He may actually have to start trying to switch over some of the conscripts to AKs, while others of them use those Molotov cocktails. And LiCtor, is the micro going to be good enough? Yes, it is. He's dropping bombs all over the place, eliminating conscripts almost one by one. A couple of them he is going to be, throwing into a couple more. And the barks are good enough. The bites are probably going to not be good enough, actually, because they do get taken out. However, the Peacekeeper does eject on out of there. He's going to be able to get some kills of his own, while the multi-gunner turret does go down right there. However, with the great control we've been seeing out of LiCtor this whole time, I think that Dankal's initial conscript fight will actually get taken out, and even quicker if the conscripts get taken out by the MCV. One of them does get crushed, and the MCV is actually just going to be moving out to the ridge, and it looks like Dankal's going to be moving out to the ridge as well. Will these conscripts actually survive very much longer? They might very well just get taken out by these Vindicators, and one more load will take them all out. And yep, it does look like, oh no, one of them does get into a building, so LiCtor wasn't able to completely eliminate that early infantry push. However, he was, for the most part, able to clean it up. Transitioning into flak troopers, an interesting choice and a solid choice, going for 7 flak troopers there. It will provide some decent anti-air firepower, and wait a second, I guess I missed a naval yard going down, and it's already been sold off as well. Dankal going to be expanding right there. He's got his refinery down, as does LiCtor, finishing off the walls just like he should. And that just keeps it a little bit safer from those pesky terror drones. And actually going to be an airfield going down. I was kind of thinking it was going to be a war factory on the ridge for some hammer tanks, but he's actually going to be transitioning to airfield, and I would not be surprised to see some MiGs to complement some of those flak troopers. Goes for the oil derrick, and he actually gets it. And actually, LiCtor hasn't even gotten his own oil derrick. Throwing the power plant down there, not a good idea, just with how close those conscripts, that one conscript actually is in that building. Riptide going to be heading around the south side of the island, or at least trying to head around on kind of the southwest side, but the multi-gunner turret does go down. This is in a very defensive position. It is in no way going to stop any sort of infantry or units from running into this base. However, we'll be able to deal with that civilian structure. I actually think he should have maybe placed it a little bit further forward so that it's still in range to shoot the building, and then used his Vindicators to clean up anything else that he needed. But oh no, one Vindicator, the MiG may actually be able to take it out. Yes, it does go down right there. How many MiGs are we actually up to? Just 2, but also a twin blade. And actually, wait a second, is that twin blade? Yes, it is going to be picking up a bunch of flak troopers, so it's probably at this point full of flak troopers. There might be a bear or some conscripts in there, and only 3 flak troopers. Transitioning into IFVs, a good choice, and it may actually get a free kill. No, the twin blade does swoop around to the other side, or rather swoop around out a little bit further, and I believe it's just going to be, oh, it actually he might be able to follow that up with a Apollo. He did lose one Vindicator, and he might follow that up with an Apollo. Wouldn't be a bad choice, considering these MiGs, if they're allowed to just go crazy on those Vindicators, then LiCtor will definitely be getting cleaned up. However, no, it's going to be a Vindicator, a curious choice. The IFVs can only do so much. They don't quite have the same versatility as an Apollo does. The War Factory goes down on the center ridge, and over here, it is going to be, oh, that Twin Blade was dangerously close to getting cleaned up by those IFVs. If he would have lost a Twin Blade full of Flak Troopers, that wouldn't have been a huge loss, but that would have definitely been a detriment in the face of a player such as LiCtor. Flying the Vindicators around, trying to find a sweet spot, trying to find someplace safe to engage. And actually, Dankal might actually be worth it to get a Crusher Crane, even if it's just kind of back here in kind of a more defensive position where the ground units won't be able to get to it. Well, the ground units won't be able to repair super easily, but his aircraft will be able to. And if he loses that Twin Blade, that will not be good, because of course you lose the cost of the Twin Blade, but then you lose all of the Flak Troopers that are inside of it. And running these Vindicators around, just keeping them in the air so that he doesn't have to pull them up off of the airfield if he needs to, if he wants to attack something. However, they are also a little bit more vulnerable to the MiGs like that. An additional power plant going down just to support that multi-gunner turret over here, which did get powered down right about the time that LiCtor almost got attacked by that Twin Blade, not by the Tengu, but rather the MCV for Dankal actually going to be moving out. So he threw down the expansion on the water, and then he actually came out here, and he's going to be going for a 5th base rather quickly, or a 5th ore node rather quickly. It looks like LiCtor may actually be going for possibly some tech, following up his War Factory there. One Vindicator does go down, the other ones will not get cleaned up. A Hammer Tank or 2 does go down as well for Dankal. Both of these players, they had some initial battles in the early game, some great control out of LiCtor, but then it looks like Dankal is looking to set himself up for the long run. He's not going to be pushing forward with a whole lot. He's going to be trying to go for the harass, setting himself up with 5 ore nodes so he can macro like crazy and get an out-of-control army. But with that multi-gunner turret there, and it's actually in a great position to spot from the most likely place for Terror Drone to come through. But the Hammer Tanks and actually the Flak Troopers, they'll be able to level these buildings pretty darn quickly. And with the Desolator Airstrike dropping toxins, however, two of those Hammer Tanks do go down, and the Vindicators do escape basically scot-free. Tesla Troopers are going to be mixed in here as well, but the War Factory does get sold off. The Cryo Shot does go down, however, it doesn't actually affect anything. But throwing down that Desolator Airstrike, almost a offensive use of that Desolator Airstrike, but in more of a defensive way. It wasn't meant to kill anything, it was just meant to block off those units, keep them from actually going in to kind of rescue this expansion, considering it was completely cut off. One MiG does go down, however, also a Vindicator did go down a little bit ago. No, that was a couple minutes ago. Switching to Cryocopters, and with 3 Cryocopters, that's actually quite a few, and you only need 1 to freeze down a Harvester in a pretty short amount of time, but with 3, that'll just go even quicker, which means if we get some Vindicators in here, or even that Riptide making use of it, yeah, and as you can see, that Riptide actually swings in from basically nowhere. It got shrunk down just so that it could zip right in and take that out, but the Ore Collector did go down. Dankal needs to be sure that he's rebuilding that. Basically, immediately he does. However, no 5th ore node for LiCtor, and his MCV is still just chilling in the back of his base, while it does look like Hammer Tank's reforming up after taking some initial losses from LiCtor's Vindicators and transitioning into Akula subs. However, you have to be so careful with those Akula subs, and with, if you only build 1 and then you send it out, yes, it is a very powerful unit. However, versus even a multi-gunner turret with the support of those Cryocopters, you can find yourself in a lot of trouble, and, well, at least the Akula sub in a little bit of trouble. Hammer Tanks rushing forward to get into the action, going to be able to take out the walls fairly quickly before they start working on that refinery. However, LiCtor is going to be moving into position, lots of infantry for support, and he does take out the bears. The 1 roar does go off, the MiGs do go down, the single MiG does go down rather quickly, meaning these Cryocopters will be able to do absolutely crazy amounts of damage, and the infantry just can't move forward with this single Guardian Tank getting ranked up to Elite, while the infantry just kind of stand around and don't really do a whole lot. While the, will he actually get the sell-off? No, he does not. So Dankal completely claims that refinery with no cashback reward for LiCtor, and LiCtor may actually get the freeze on that Akula sub, and does he actually have a Riptide or anything to take this out? He might actually just have to pull a Vindicator off of the line and take it down. However, with 4 Cryocopters, that is a very powerful combination, and you can freeze down so much stuff very, very quickly. Even an MCV would get frozen on quite a quick rate, and then of course combining that with Cryo, well, it's probably the Cryo Blast at this point. Cryo Shot has already been purchased. Cryo Blast as well, and going hit for hit with those refineries, taking out 1 refinery for LiCtor and 1 refinery for Dankal, and then that ore collector will just have to kind of scoot his way along on the water, and the Terror Drone is able to get an infection. Not actually sure if he'll be able to make it in time. Yeah, he will definitely be able to make that in time. The repair drones will have to get to work on him, healing him of that Terror Drone. Dropping the Desolator Airstrike, once again, more of a defensive use. Dankal didn't actually kill anything with it, I don't think. He might have gotten a couple of infantry, actually, but he wasn't able to do a huge amount of damage, more of just preventing infantry from engaging Bullfrogs. Going to be able to clean up a couple of those Vindicators, but actually pulling the IFVs up as well, and once again, Cryocopters going to be making short work of some of these buildings. Will Dankal actually choose to just sell it off? Because with Vindicators out on the map, though, they're such a threat, and it's such an easy thing. Actually, I think that did get sold off. I don't see any Vindicators moving across on the minimap. However, taking out the Harvester is not a huge deal, and it will force 1,000 credits to be repurchased, to be spent to repurchase that ore collector. And if you hadn't noticed, I am trying to be just a little bit quiet. There are all sleeping people in the house, so I'm trying not to yell too much. But is he actually going to be going for, yeah, he is redeploying that naval yard, so a curious case or a curious move for Dankal, and I'm not entirely sure if he's going to just continue Akula subs just for the harassment. He does need to keep this economy locked down and make sure that he's got a solid lead, although a huge mistake out of LiCtor for not rebuilding that ore collector, meaning that he's really only got 2 going at this time, and just now getting that 3rd one back online. However, the Bullfrogs will be able to clean up not a whole lot. Cryocopters escape. They clean up that Harvester quite readily, and this Harvester, on the other hand, in the back of the base for Dankal, has been going crazy this whole time. And actually, wait a second, is that ore collector making full rounds? He may very well be, and that ore, yeah, I guess he's making full rounds to this Hilltop refinery. The other ones are going to be walled in, and so that's just kind of funny that he's actually just making rounds like that, getting, I guess, a little bit of extra money possibly for Dankal. However, it does look like a single power plant will get cleaned up. Putting it on the edge there makes it safe from ground attacks relatively, but of course those air attacks, pesky air attacks, and once again, that Crusher Crane probably would have paid for itself in unit repairs by now, especially with an elite MiG, and that MiG will be able to stand its own if LiCtor actually ends up getting any Apollos, but also versus the Cryocopters, it'll just clean them up a little bit faster. The Bullfrogs just simply aren't fast enough to deal with this Air Force out of LiCtor, while Dankal doesn't really have a whole lot to deal with it, and that may actually end up costing him a lot more than he would like in this game. Dankal's been doing a pretty good job of doing little amounts of damage to the economy, you know, breaking down walls and then infecting Harvesters. At least you pull it off the line. He didn't actually get the kill on that one, but then eliminating other Harvesters around the map and just taking down refineries when and where he can. Even just making use of a single Akula sub, once again going to be deploying it and throwing down that Desolator airstrike just again, and I would think it would have served a little bit more of a purpose. LiCtor, what are you doing? He's actually going to be parking his tanks in there, running through it. He doesn't really care what he's doing, although if he rushes forward, and no, where is the Tesla Trooper's special ability? Not actually locking down any of those Guardian tanks, getting utilized far too late. Dankal, what were you actually doing there? He was making no use of his infantry, letting them get run over just a little bit there, not sustaining huge losses or anything. And LiCtor, on the other hand, taking quite a bit of damage from that pesky Desolator airstrike, those Badger bombers dropping those toxins. and deciding just to stick with the 4 cryocopters hasn't actually been getting them healed up, and it looks like a cryo shot will go down, the cryo blast rather, will clean up a couple of these infantry, get a couple of Tesla troopers, which is really the most important thing, because those Tesla troopers will absolutely wreck your infantry, lock down your tanks, and clean up your army if you're not careful. And of course, deploying ore collectors into command hubs just so that you can, well, even get the build radius to rebuild your multi-gunner turret and then sell off that command hub is always a good idea. And a Desolator airstrike here would be absolutely detrimental and devastating to LiCtor. However, Dankal already used his, and he did lose 1 twin blade there, which means, and actually I think both of the MiGs may have gone down as well, possibly to that multi-gunner turret or just the IFVs running around the map. And look at that, LiCtor stand on top. He knows where these units are, and he will be able to even get a twin blade, able to take that down. A free kill for LiCtor. Not a huge deal, but definitely a slight advantage in there as we head kind of into the later game, and just sniping harvester after harvester. And oh, actually this Vindicator will go down. However, we're engaging a huge battle over here, and once again the Tesla troopers not really being any use. However, they will lock down some of the Guardian tanks. LiCtor actually driving into that Tesla trooper with 2 of his Guardian tanks, which could mean free kills. However, the Peacekeepers are trying to overpower that Tesla trooper. I'm not sure if they're actually going to be able to do it. Yeah, they were able to do it. It's hard to tell because that Peacekeeper was actually directly on top of the Tesla trooper almost exactly, and LiCtor somehow able to completely clean up the army of Dankal, rebuilding that ore collector once again, and MiGs just flying around with no twin blades to stick by. However, the single Vindicator, is he actually going to be going for a hammer tank? No, he does go for the Tesla trooper, an interesting choice, although if you go for the hammer tank, you're not actually going to get the kill. Although with no crusher crane anywhere to provide repairs, then Dankal using taking damage to your units is just as good as, is almost as good as killing a unit. You don't actually lose the DPS, but the damage is done in full, whereas if you do damage to, a Guardian tank, then it just gets repaired in a couple of seconds. And actually, the Devastator airstrike could be absolutely detrimental here, and Dankal is going to be bringing in all of the Badger Bombers, gets a couple of infantry, gets a couple of spawning infantry as well, and then LiCtor locks that down. No real damage to the heavy-hitting, more expensive tanks. However, the cryo shot the Cryocopter Riptide combo didn't actually end up working out that time, not with the Akula sub so close, and throwing away an Akula sub for, I think he just killed a Harvester. He didn't even get the kill on the Prospector the last time. Not sure if that trade is going to be worth it every time. It's of course worth it if you can take down the refinery, because not only have you stopped ore collection, but then you are also going to be forcing them to rebuild that, and just taking out command hub is going to be at least a minor annoyance. But it does look like the single Riptide will get cleaned up, and a ore collector just going to be heading in there a little bit for a scout. And it does look like the Cryocopter's trying to get a kill on that Akula submarine. Of course, it's difficult to actually keep track of them because they just disappear off the minimap, and then suddenly you have no idea where they are. But if there's any IVs mixed in with this army, they could actually clean up those MiGs once and for all. The IVs are going to be chilling over here under the umbrella, because I guess it's just a bit too hot out for that one IFV. He's chilling, he's got his lemonade and his rockets, and what more do you really need other than lemonade and rockets? And Dankal, he was not happy. He wasn't content to just simply leave that single command hub there just to be rebuilt. Athena cannons are out, and are there going to be constant Athena cannon production? Switching over to Mirage tanks, not a bad choice, although we are going to be seeing possibly a battle of the artillery, although no V4 rockets at this time. The tier 3 tech just now finishing for Dankal, while it does look like the Apollos or the Athena Cannon is going to be locking some stuff down, shooting and shattering some of those Tesla troopers, able to clean them up quite quickly. The MiGs do rush in, but with no actual anti-air, they're going to go basically unopposed, as is this Twin Blade, which is a huge mistake out of LiCtor, and that could actually end up costing him this battle, as the forces from Dankal get completely eliminated. A lot of that by that cryo tech. That actually went a lot more in LiCtor's favor than I was thinking it was going to, but it does look like LiCtor could get quite a few of his tanks cleaned up here. Where is that Twin Blade? He's actually just going to be hanging back, as the Javelin troopers there were actually enough to scare it off, and I guess Dankal actually did only have that single Twin Blade and no way to actually repair it either. The single Akula sub just going to be chilling around. So LiCtor able to escape with a lot more than I was thinking he was going to be able to. Dankal definitely not able to do the damage that he was able to. And once again, look at this. Healing up 2 almost completely dead cryocopters. And that's basically money saved, because those cryocopters would not have lasted very long without repairs in the next battle, and this single Vindicator may actually be able to do some damage, while Dankal's army just constantly is getting weaker and weaker as he does not have any way to repair. Apocalypse tanks are now out, however they have been spotted, as Natasha has also, which is just kind of like a, hey, maybe you want to try some Tanya action as well. For LiCtor. LiCtor actually is not going to be producing a Tanya, not at this time. Twin Blade going to be flying around the map, trying to find somewhere to do some damage. Look at that, the IFV's just parked out there, waiting for that single Akula sub, maybe even to resurface so that they can do a little bit of damage. Of course, this is not Red Alert 1, and you cannot shoot. What were those Typhoon attack subs? I believe they could attack land. I might actually have the name wrong, but I remember in Red Alert 1 just building a ridiculous amount of it. Subs and then having them being able to fire onto land, and that was just the greatest thing ever. However, that is not what this is. Desolator Airstrike getting called in. Cryo Shot gets called in as well. The Kirov is going to be trying to get in on the action. The Desolator Airstrike will get some of the artillery. May actually keep one of these Athena cannons, and there is that magnetic singularity, not a support power you see used very often. However, will be locking all of these tanks down. I think eliminating even a couple of infantry as well, although I'm not entirely sure. Kirov's going to be rolling in, doing massive damage to that ground army, although not so much because of the shields of the Athena cannon. And then LiCtor just trying to move his army around and keep them away from those Kirovs. Of the Kirovs, who might actually get the angle of engagement on that army, and they will be able to clean up one Athena cannon for sure. Goes down right there before the remains of one of those. And actually a fully heroic Apocalypse tank appears and emerges out of basically nowhere, getting cleaned up hardly at all, and just one final Guardian tank stood between it and total victory. However, the Cryocopters will get cleaned up here, and suddenly with a combination of a few tier 3 units, LiCtor has gotten most of his army completely cleaned up. Even the fully heroic Apocalypse tank going to be hanging out in the back trying to get some repairs. And just in a few seconds, LiCtor lost so much. He was doing actually pretty darn well after the engagement before that, and able to keep quite a bit, but Dankal has been defeated. I think he might have been able to hold on a little bit longer, maybe been able to muster his forces behind those Apocalypse tanks if he could have held on just a little bit longer, got some more bullfrogs out, but it was not meant to be, and that will do it for this game. 22 minutes and 22 seconds. Dankal and LiCtor showing us a pretty darn good game. I hope you enjoyed it. This is going to be Sybert signing out.